We'll wait for them to get seated. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Diana Hornez, and I'm the Cherokee Association of Realtors president this year, and I'm honored to be your moderator. And also here is Mike Stott, and he is our 2024 Cherokee Association president, past president. So tonight's candidate panel is focused on special election for Cherokee County Commissioner District 1. As realtors, homeowners, business leaders, and community advocates, we know how critical local leadership is to growth, development, and the quality of life in Cherokee County. This panel gives us all an opportunity to hear directly from the candidates about their plans and positions on issues that matter to us all. We want to thank you for coming on this Thursday evening. I know we all have busy lives, and the fact that you took time to be here makes my heart very happy. It means that you care about our community and you care about its leaders. So I also want to recognize any elected officials who are able to attend. Please stand so we can show our appreciation for the service you do in our community. Any local leaders? Woo! Charlize. And of course, thank you to our candidates for taking the time to speak with our community tonight. As we all know, or this may be news to some of y'all, voting began on Monday. Early voting began on Monday, with the election going on August 26th. Let me turn my page. And with all that information, I do want to kick it off and start off, but first I would like to start with our pledge, and going to be doing our pledge is Mike Stott. If I can get y'all to stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mic check, mic check. Okay, so now we're going to talk protocols, and I'm going to discuss how this is going to flow. But also I wanted to mention really quick, we did invite all the candidates, and Will Cagle was unable to attend. He had a family event, and he did send his representative, Scott. Scott, if anyone has any questions with regards to where Will Cagle stands, please reach out to Scott afterwards. And then also, at 7 p.m., unfortunately, Rick Whiteside is going to have to leave. He did have a death in the family, and so we are even flabbergasted that he's here now, but he did commit and he wanted to attend. So when you do see him leave, there's a reason behind that. Okay, now back to protocols. So we are going to have opening statements. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to introduce themselves and share why they are running for County Commissioner District 1. After introductions, we will move to the Q&A portion. With the Q&A portion, each response will be limited to 1.5 minutes as well. Our lovely Karen from this Cherokee Association staff will hold up it says 1 minute, but it's 30 seconds actually. So she'll hold up the 1 minute, it means you have 30 seconds left, and then the next sign she has says stop, means your time is up. So we will go in alphabetical order by last name, and then once all the candidates go, the next question will begin with the next candidate. So everyone will have a chance to answer the question first. There will be no rebuttals unless someone was called out specifically by name. At that moment, or after that, they will have 1 minute to respond. At the end of the panel, we'll have each candidate have a 1 minute closing statement. And then prior to the 1 minute closing statement, we'll also have an opportunity for the public to ask questions. We do have note cards over there in the corner with some pens. If anyone is so inclined to submit questions, we will take them and ask our candidates as well. And we ask that everyone in the audience be respectful. Please hold your applause to the very, very end so we can keep things moving smoothly and fairly. Now, let's begin. Can we start with you, Jonathan?
Hello. My name is Jonathan Browning. I've been in Cherokee County since 2016. I'm married, have a wife, a marriage of 17 years, 2 children, and I live in the free home community. My wife's a teacher at Creek Lynn Middle School. I have 2 children there as well. I am a project manager for a small construction company in Gwinnett County. I've been involved in the community since day one, whether it's in the PTA or the school or charities around the community. I do go to Revolution Church as well. I chose to run for commissioner as I care for the community deeply. And a quote that my grandfather said that has always stuck to me is, your best asset you can make is the woman you choose to be your wife, and she will make any house a home. I made Cherokee County my home, so I strive to make this the best home for everybody around. I care about the schools, I care about the community, and I want our community to be represented by the people who live here, not by the new residents, but by the existing residents. My focus is to save rural Cherokee County, and I'm not against growth, I'm for smart growth. I am an advocate for the land use plan with common sense, and I'm an advocate for everybody who has the right to protect their assets. What is fair, as well as good neighbors good fences make good neighbors. So my motto is less is more, and I would love to have your vote. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Justin Page. It's an honor to be here tonight. I thought as I was coming up on the road, David Moody, he's not here tonight, but when I was in the moving industry, I remember meeting David in my early 20s, and I was in a meeting, and I was addressing a crowd much like tonight, and I made the mistake of addressing and saying, realtors, and David said at the end, he said, if you're going to sell to realtors, you need to know how to say it. So it's realtors. So I've always said that over the years. So I'm Justin Page. I'm a 4th generation resident here in Cherokee County. I was born and raised here. I went to Macedonia Elementary, went to Teasley Middle School, graduated from Cherokee High School. I've been a public servant here in the community. I have been the deputy coroner for Cherokee County. I did that just to give back to our community and to help pay for my son's college several years ago. And I've been in the moving industry since I was in my early 20s, and I started Page Relocation in 2020, and I've worked with many of you here. I've actually moved Diana and her husband before, and so I sold my business back in February of this year, and I come home to my wife and I said, honey, the Lord has placed on my heart to run for commissioner. And she looked at me and she said, are you crazy? And I remember saying to her, I'm real serious about this. So the Lord's placed a burden on my heart to do this. I'm all in it. I'm here. I love the people of Cherokee County. I'm doing this for my son, my 6-year-old son, so he'll have a place to live. Thank you.
Well, I'm Robert Ridley. I'm running for this job because I really believe I can do a great job at it, and I will put the time and effort in to do it. I'm 61 years old. I'm partially retired, so I can make this my full-time job because I believe a commissioner needs to be a full-time job because this county is at a crossroads on how we want to grow. The unincorporated part of the county is growing at about 1.4%, which really isn't that bad, but we have to make sure we continue to do it properly. When I moved here in 1970 with my parents, which my father was born in Atlanta, but we moved back in 1970, I moved at Johnson's Ferry Road at the river in Cobb County. I used to ride my dirt bike up and down the road, and Cobb County was very, very conservative. And if we're not careful with the growth and the things we're doing, we're going to end up just like Cobb County. We're not going to have our values, we're not going to have our agricultural areas, and we're not going to have our large homeland. It's going to be all packed and tight. And that's my major concern because I have 6 grandkids, 1 on the way. 5 grandkids are currently in Cherokee County schools. The other one's not old enough. And I'm very concerned on how this county is going to grow and how we do that. The other thing I want to do is I've been in private business all my life. I've signed checks that were either my money or me or my partner's money. I've never in my life spent anybody else's money. And that's the way I want to do this in the county because it is our money, it's my money and your money. So we need to be very accountable and very cautious on how we spend money. Thank you.
I'm Rick Whiteside. I live in Waleska with my wife Patty. We've been there. We've been in Cherokee since 1998 when I opened my business. It's an ecological consulting business. Land use specialist is what we do. When I started that business in 1998 with 2 people, I've grown it to 30. We have 4 offices in 3 states in Georgia, 3 states, Florida, Alabama, and of course Georgia. And when I got to Cherokee in 1998, I became immediately civically involved. I was past Rotary Club president in Woodstock. I've been served on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce, which I've been a long-time member. Served on Reinhardt's 8A program, raising funds for Cherokee student scholarships. I've served on the Reinhardt University President's Council. Also, I've been on the Planning Commission for 14 and plus years now. If you were at the meetings last night or last Tuesday, you saw that we recommended denial on several, and we recommended approval on a couple. But most of that is we're looking for responsible growth that's consistent with the land use plan. But so I am running to continue that. I think my civically involvement it qualifies me for being experienced, know what the job is on day one. I think I understand what land use is about. That's what I've done for 40 some odd years. That's what I will continue to do, and I'll continue to manage it properly, particularly in District 1 to maintain our rural character. Thank you. And respectfully request your vote.
Thank you, gentlemen. So on to our first question with regards to obtainable housing. Obtainable housing is a growing concern in Cherokee County, especially for first responders, teachers, and young families. What strategies would you support to increase access to obtainable housing in our county? Yes, sir.
That's a dear subject to me. As you know, my wife is a teacher, and I know what my wife makes. It's pretty sad that I have to buy supplies for our own classroom that school will not cover. So I think about that. It's like, it's not just me thinking about the other teachers and also the first responders. So I do work in construction management. I do work with a lot of developers, a lot of construction companies. I have those relationships that builders who want to come to Cherokee County and build. But there's a lot of red tape that are preventing them from building, breaking ground, such as the land use plan that needs to be used in moderation with common sense on zoning changes, as well as impact fees. Impact fees are the biggest thing that affects a community. A lot of the impact fees don't even cover the upfront costs for the schools, the first responders, et cetera. So my thoughts are increase those impact fees to lower the offsetting costs of the county that has to invest into it. Also, I would like to work with our state senate to create some kind of incentive, such as first-time home buyers, that would work very similar to escrow, that these developers would pay an upfront impact fee because the banks are making an investment into your community. They're making all the money on the front end, but we're paying they're making all their money on the front end, but we don't make interest or equity on the tail end. So the banks need to invest in the community by implementing these impact fees. It'd be a simple one-cost fee from the banks, from the interest paid over the 30 years. That would help offset the cost for first responders. In theory, that these first responders and teachers pay for their own salaries, and we need to find some kind of mutual thing to keep our first responders and teachers in our county, who they represent. Thank you.
Well, I actually love the fact that you use the word attainable. We've heard affordable most of the time. What is affordable, what is attainable is actually different to most everybody. Anybody in here know how many homes that are under $350,000 currently for sale in Cherokee County? 97 homes. There are, I looked at it before I came here tonight, 60 single-family dwellings, 6 mobile homes, and 31 townhomes. Here's the deal. The dream, the American dream is what? Is to own a home, right? And we quickly have realized and understand that that is coming very almost impossible for first responders, school teachers, public safety. And I've said since day one, I'm not against growth, but I'm against irresponsible growth that profits over people. We have to have an option and to have obtainable housing. One thing that I have thought about and mentioned several times is an option for accessory dwelling units to try to look at and maybe have apartments on property there that you own, smaller square foot of housing that your family. I had a lady the other day that said, my son is getting married to his wife and they can't afford a house, so we have a little apartment in the back, and we want to be able to have them do that. So there's lots of options for that. Thank you.
Well, affordable housing is honestly it's going to be tough in Cherokee County because I haven't talked to a property owner yet that wants to give his property away. The property values are up. It's in every county around us. But there are suggestions in the way we can help the county employees. There's, I believe it's University of Chicago, there's a city in the state of Georgia doing it now, where after an employee has been with the county for a certain amount of time, and I believe the one I've seen was 5 years, that the county would basically co-sign on a mortgage for that person, which they would get the county interest rate, which would be a huge deduction. They would also sign a contract with the county that if they left employment from the county and did not retire, then they would have to refinance that house where the county wasn't involved. So that way you are helping the county employees that stay here, and that would tremendously help with retention and still not affect the property values of everybody in the county, because the only way we're going to get affordable housing in the county is build high density in the county, and I haven't met anybody yet that I have talked to that wants high density in the county. The cities have the high density. That's where your rent's going to be cheaper and your affordable housing is going to be cheaper, because they're going to have 2, 3, 5, 10, 20, 30 people to an acre, and you're not going to have that in the county. So we do need the cities, but as far as the county, I think the mortgage program is the best way to help county employees. Now, it won't do anything for the school teachers because the county has nothing to do with the school board. But if we did it, hopefully the school board would do it. Thank you.
I'm going to address another topic that hasn't been talked about yet. We have institutional home buying that's going on in our country right now. Institutional home buying, if you don't understand what I'm saying, is where large companies are buying houses. This all started during the 2008 housing crisis, and housing pricing just got jacked up. It continued to rise, and they bought large quantities of homes, and they turned around and rented them. So what have we done to do? How are we going to address that? Well, the county has already put in, there's no bill for rent subdivisions. And we've also limited rentals in existing subdivisions to 10%. So we're addressing that problem in the county already, but institutional home buying has really driven up prices for all folks, everybody. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, 14% of the houses in Cherokee are rented, and that's 109,250, 14% are rented. 5% of those are institutional owned. 5%, over 5%. Nationally, it's less than 1. In the Atlanta area, it's 4.4. Cherokee got bought into this, not the counties, but the cities bought into it. And we got to not have institutional buying. We need state legislative help on that, but we have done our part to keep this done. No institutional buying buy for rent.
Thank you. Karen, let's bump them up another 30 seconds because there's only 4 of them, so we can expound on the answers a little more. So thank you all for being here, and thank you all for being here. This is an important issue, and the cities operate, but the Cherokee County Commissioners have a lot of power and influence on real estate. So the second question we have is, Cherokee County continues to experience population growth. From 2000 to 2020, we grew at an average of 2.44%, from 142,000 to roughly 266,000. Current estimates have us in 2050 at 408,000. We're going up another 148,000 people. What is your approach to managing this growth responsibly while balancing the needs of current residents and future development? And we'll start with Justin this time.
We have 159 counties in the state of Georgia. Does anybody know where Cherokee County is ranked with the largest population? We're at 7th. So if we look at the number of population right now, we are at about 297,413 to be exact, and that doesn't count if people were moved in today or who moved out today. But here's the math on this. We have increased from 2010, 15 years ago, by 38%. So here's what it tells us. We know for sure that we are growing by 2% every year. So if we know that that is the facts, then where are we going to be in 10 or 15 years from now? Everybody that I see and talk to, they say infrastructure is our issue. I agree with that. I have said since day one that we need an immediate pause on all high-density housing where infrastructure is not in place. We have to fix it before we build more. So we're going to have people continuing being moved here. Do you blame them? I don't blame people for wanting to be in Cherokee County. We love Cherokee County. It's consistently ranked as one of the top places to live. So I don't blame people for wanting to come here. But we have to, we have a $415 million budget. So we have to, I've heard infrastructure, I've heard all this stuff. Well, the reality is, how are we going to get the money to do that? And I think we've got to come up with ways. I have called for a full transparency with the budget in Cherokee County. A live dashboard where you, the taxpayer, can see where the money is being spent. So if we're growing every year, in order to not have worse situation that we're currently in now, we have to do what we can to stop it. Thank you.
Well, like I said earlier, Cherokee County, unincorporated Cherokee County, that's the county, not the city, has been 1.4%, which really is not a bad number because we are going to grow. We just have to make sure we do it correctly. We do have a growth boundary agreement with the cities, and I don't know why we don't get together with the cities and have a population expansion agreement. How many new homes each city wants to add every year? How many new homes the county wants to do? And at least try to come up with a reasonable agreement, which still is just an agreement, just like the boundaries, growth boundary, it's an agreement. There's nothing legally binding. You change the mayor, you change the people, things change. But I still think a great idea to help control the growth is get with the cities and do something like the growth boundary on a population increase every year to see how much we want to populate, because we are going to grow and the cities are going to grow. You're not going to be able to stop it. If people could have stopped it before I moved in 95, they probably would have, and probably most of us wouldn't be here. So that's just not going to happen. So let's try to manage it correctly. And in District 1, we have great golf course communities, and we have cow pastures, and everything in between, and I hope we can keep that. My growth plan is to try to keep the variety that we have in District 1, and District 1 has very little sewer access, so that's going to help cut down high density. But still, if you stuck a house on every acre or every 2 acres in District 1, it would be completely overcrowded. So yes, we have to look at infrastructure, we have to look at roads, we got to look at utilities, we got to look at what the schools can handle, the whole thing as we approve zoning, because zoning is the best way for us to handle everything, because when you zone something, it's done. Just like the apartments that people complain about in Cherokee County. The 2 that have been built in the last few years were zoned, 15 and 18 years ago. So you've got to be careful when you zone things, because you may zone it for that today, but tomorrow it could be something different. Thank you.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Cherokee County continues to experience population growth. What is your approach to managing this growth responsibly while balancing the needs of current residents and future development?
Well, it's been mentioned we have growth boundaries with the cities. Those were worked out a couple years ago, and they were working quite well up till recently. Those growth boundaries were allowing the cities to be able to annex without opposition from the county for a higher density that was associated with their city, and they could support it. The problem we've had with growth, is basically within the cities. I'll give you an example. In the past 10 years, on an average, we've had 34 permits per square mile in unincorporated Cherokee County. 34 units per square mile on average on any year. Holly Springs, 431 units per square mile, and that annually over that 10-year period.
The growth problems are in the cities, and we're trying to manage that with those growth boundaries. That is the most effective way to do it. We keep the high density in proximity to the cities. As it's been said, there's no sewer, there's very little utilities available to the outside in District 1. So again, follow the land use plan, follow the zoning. And so one thing I would like to point out is that we could build another 51,250 homes in Cherokee County with the existing zoning in place right now. So we can't just stop, say we're not going to grow. We have to manage that growth. We have to be actively involved in it and actively participate in that process. But again, growth boundaries need to be respected. They were worked out diligently by all parties, and we need to continue to work forward in keeping that in place. Thank you.
I would like to think of this as a business. Before you expand any business, you like to look at the resources you have available. That'd be manpower, cash flow, such as first responders, the ability to pay for your infrastructure. So we look ahead in Cherokee County. The Bluffs is a good example where the infrastructure is already there. There's 700 acres with obtainable sewer, the zoning, easy access to the interstate, but developers are not going to that area. So you have to ask why. We need to bring developers who want to go to that area where the tape is removed. You can start building homes right there in that area and work your way away from the interstate. Right now, people are focused on moving to rural Cherokee County and moving towards interstate. It's the complete opposite. Now, that's where we have our issues where we're building in areas that don't have the infrastructure. So let's focus where the infrastructure is first, close to the interstate, the Bluffs. All the area has sewer, city water, all the first responders, the restaurants, all these condensed housing where people want to live are in that community. We need to stop focusing on the rural area where the infrastructure is not there. We need heck, Highway 20 is not even built yet, and they're trying to put an apartment complex out there. That's not going to help the community at all. Little known fact is Creekview High School is the only school district that does not have an apartment complex. Why is the apartment complex there needed? So if the apartment complex is so needed, move it closer to the interstate and focus on inside out, not outside in. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go on to question number 3 regarding zoning. What are your thoughts on the current zoning policies in Cherokee County? Are there any areas where you believe zoning reform is necessary to support our smart growth and diversified housing options?
I actually think the zoning process in Cherokee County is very open. It's all in public meetings if the public wants to attend. It's a very public process that every citizen has a chance to go to and voice their opinion. Most choose not to. But when the ones that do, we need to listen to them, because the growth in the zoning is the most important thing we can do, because that's how we can control overcrowding. I've heard that some people don't want good roads because good roads lead to more subdivisions. No, that's not the case. Zoning and the way it's done leads into more subdivisions. And more subdivisions aren't bad as long as they're in the right place, so that you have ingress and egress and everything's there. So we just got to grow smartly in Cherokee County, and that will take care of the problem, because like we're only growing at 1.4%, like I've said a couple times. The growth rate's not bad. We just have to make sure we contain it and do it properly. The major growth is in the cities. Thank you.
The zoning is a very public process. We have, being on the Planning Commission, we have 2 meetings a month. There's a work session on the 3rd Thursday, and then there is a public hearing on the first Tuesday of each month. So everyone, all citizens can come to that. You don't have to be an applicant. You can come and just watch and listen. Obviously, if you have at the public hearing, if you have a position you want to take, pro or con, you're offered that opportunity to respond. The land use plan is something we must keep up and revise. We revise that every 5 years. It's a 10-year look, but we revise it every 5 years. It sets the tone. It governs how zoning is done forward. But when we do get a zoning request, we also get an evaluation from transportation, water, sewer, sheriff, fire, and the school. So they tell us, can they support it or can they not support it? And often when they say they can't support it, those are the ones that get typically denied or recommended for denial at the Planning Commission. And as they go, so we do evaluate deep understanding of what the infrastructure is today, and we rely on the staff of the county to give us that information. But I, myself, take it further. People that have been on the Planning Commission with me can definitely tell you this. I will research all the aerial photographs historically. I can sometimes go back to 1950 and beyond. I look at the soils maps, look at topography. I try to figure out what's going to happen to this property once it's graded and it's a subdivision, it's a commercial facility, an industrial facility. How are we going to manage stormwater? How are we going to manage ingress, egress in and out of this site? Do we separate employees from truck traffic? Do we have shift work and so forth? Do we have double entrances into subdivisions? How do we keep people moving as best we can within the request they're making? Can we do it? Thank you.
I think each independent zoning needs to be heard individually. As mentioned, I'm an advocate for the land use plan, but common sense needs to intervene. A good example, first one, on East Cherokee, there's a property for sale that the owner's been trying to sell directly across the street from the landfill. On the back side, there's the Cherokee County Water Authority. On the other side, there's Baldwin Paving, but it's currently zoned ag. Common sense, nobody's gonna buy that property and build homes or put a farm on there, but per the zoning use plan, it's zoned ag. Common sense is that needs to be changed to industrial. If the infrastructure is there, it could bring additional tax revenue as well as jobs as well. Another option would be, another example, across from the Woodmont Kroger. There's a cattle farm directly across the street from the Kroger, zoned ag. We all know nobody's gonna buy a house, build anything there, but that needs to be zoned commercial when that time comes. A third option is where the Avery community was gone behind where it was zoned ag when it did not meet the community, and they changed the zoning for that. That did not make sense at all. So each zoning needs to be done independently, best for the community, the available tax structure, as well. Does it make sense at all? Thank you.
So I do agree with common sense. I will tell you this, that getting into politics, I've found that sometimes common sense isn't so common anymore. But I will say this, we've got a good base. I've been to several of the BOC meetings, and I was, like Mr. Browning here, a little appalled that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial on a certain property where it just didn't make sense to me that you wouldn't allow. So sometimes common sense needs to come into place. You got to look at the rules on the map too. You've got to look at the land use map plan, and you've got to really find is first of all, is the infrastructure in place? Here's what we do have to do. We have to stop saying yes to every developer with a checkbook. And if it makes sense, if it defines smart growth, Justin Page is all for it. I want to say this, I think we need to reform the process. I've run a business, and I know that it's so frustrating when government moves in. We got good builders here. I just built a house about a year ago. We've got good local builders here, and I have said from the beginning that we need to rely on those builders and do things with those builders instead of going to the folks outside. So I think that the rezoning process needs to be streamlined, and I think as long as the builders are building in areas that fit the land use map plan and it defines smart growth and infrastructure is in place, why wouldn't we work with them? Why wouldn't we provide a solution for the community that we actually need here, building maybe smaller homes, workforce housing, or single-family dwelling neighborhoods in Cherokee County to help our character? Thank you.
Thank you for that. So here's the challenge, is the growth we've experienced over the last 20 years is higher than what the growth, if that growth continues, we'll run out of the 51,000 homes in about 15 years. So we need to slow down growth. The challenge is if we slow down growth, laws of supply and demand mean we're increasing the values of the property. If people still want to move here, property values are going to continue to go up. The overwhelming sentiment I hear from people that go to the city council or the meetings is that traffic is a major concern. And I never hear anybody talk about what the actual traffic rates are. You know, if you build a subdivision with 300 homes, it's going to add maybe 1,000 vehicles a day, but if it's on a road that has 50,000 vehicles a day, nobody's ever telling the people that say not in my backyard that their argument isn't valid. So that's a long feature. I'm a numbers person. To put this into perspective, even at slow growth, we need to add a bridge mill to Cherokee County every 2 years. 3,000 homes every 2 years. We need to add a bridge mill. What are your plans? Infrastructure, lack of it. What is the biggest challenge you see with infrastructure and building these 1,500 homes a year that we need to handle even the slow growth, much less what high growth would be? And we'll start with Mr. Whiteside.
Well, that's a kind of multifaceted question, but we'll start with traffic. How about that? If you look at the comprehensive transportation plan that Cherokee has, it's a 30-year lookout. We got 300 projects we need to improve on. 300 at a cost of $2.5 billion. That's with a B. $2.5 billion. GDOT is is scheduled to buy 1.8 billion of that problem. Cherokee is to provide 287 million over 30 years. But again, think about this. If you got 300 projects in a 10-year plan, that's 30 projects a year. That's a tough way to go to get that infrastructure in place. So Cherokee's contribution is 287 million of that 2.5 billion. That represents 70% of our annual budget going forward to next year. So it's a lot of money. Whether we need it, we're going to have to continue to be smart about our growth. There may be those in here that want a new bridge mill every 10 years. But we are bound to operate by our land use plan. Again, it's updated every 5 years. It's a 10-year lookout. We have a zoning issue that we must look at. One of the zoning issues we looked at on East Cherokee Drive that was just talked about on that industrial site, we had a traffic study done on that, and it had an F rating, an F. That means it fails today under its current situation. They were going to put 2 entrances on Coker's Road, which is interesting because it's a residential road, and it was a failed road. Right after we voted that denial, a garbage truck turned over the very next day and blocked that road because it's a failing intersection. So we have to be smart about where we put our improvements, and we certainly need to follow the land use plan. Thank you.
To piggyback on what Rick said, I agree with him to an extent. There are areas that can handle another bridge mill, as mentioned as the bluffs. The infrastructure's there. There's over 700 acres on one side, another 600 on the other side. That can handle a large development. If, say, it takes 6 to 8 years to build that out, we're continuously building up our infrastructure out from the interstate, not towards the interstate. From there, we can work with GDOT, get our capitalized investment plan over the 5-year period, work our way out away from the interstate. Speaking on behalf of East Cherokee, the landfill gets host fees from every dump fee from outside counties. We need to increase our host fees from those counties. That would therefore improve the roads as well, and also increase the price per ton, even for inside trash being deposited. The roads are being destroyed mainly from outside trucks in that community. So there are many areas you can focus on to build these bridge mills, but start from the center, which is 575, work your way out, not from the outside edge in, because this infrastructure will always be behind. So per GDOT, each house that's built, it brings 10 vehicles per day. That's you going to work, back, school, back. That doesn't include the Amazon delivery drivers, the Uber drivers, all that nature. So each house you factor in. Now take that into an apartment complex, say an apartment complex with 300 units built on 20 acres. That is 3,000 cars per day in that one area. So It all depends on where you build this at. Like I said, I look at this as a business. You have to look at your resources available before you invest, or similar to a credit card. Just because you have an open credit limit doesn't mean you should max it out, because you're always making your minimum payments. Focus on building ahead, obtaining the wealth, which is the roads, the streets, the infrastructure, and it will come. Therefore, we're not always 2 steps behind. Thank you.
This is a wonderful, beautiful question. And the next person that you put in office for District 1 needs to have an exact plan. Here's my plan on this. First of all, I want to say that growth has to pay for growth. And how we do this, we, number one, have to have smart road and transportation investments. I've said from day one, we must fix it first and then expand where it makes sense. We have to prioritize repairing existing roads, bridges, and intersections. We need to understand and study the traffic flow, to use traffic studies and maybe read-time traffic signals. We need to look into putting roundabouts in. And here's the deal. If it's approved and the commissioners say yes to it, and they find that the roundabout needs to be there, don't you think that the builder or the developer should have some sort of responsibility to pay for that? I certainly think so. The next piece, in addition to smart road and transportation investment, is something that we cannot forget about, and that is emergency access and public safety infrastructure. It is imperative that we make sure that as we grow, that our first responders' road access is clearly identified, and that we understand where the gaps are, if any, in fire, EMS, and law enforcement. We need to perhaps do a bridge inspection initiative. We need growth smart infrastructure planning, development impact accountability. We have to take a look at all this growth, and we have to make sure. The reality is that builders and developers have already. I spoke to a few just last week. They said, "Well, we're done with Cherokee County. We're headed to Talking Rock, and we're headed to Jasper, and we're headed to LJ." Folks, we got to have a plan. If we don't have a plan, we're going to be in trouble. Thank you.
Well, the regular growth in Cherokee County, you're going to get more of it in the cities, but the unincorporated county is going to grow. What we've got in our favor is Cherokee County is close to 20% larger than Cobb County. We do have a lot of property, so we can spread it out as needed. And how we need to pay for our roads and keep them up is, I know the county last year tried to get a 1-cent sales tax put on the ballot, and the legislature left a little early, so it didn't happen. And what that was going to do was bring us up to 7% sales tax instead of 6. And I believe there's only 3 counties in the metro area that are 6, or in the state are 6. So 7 and 8 is normal. It would bring us up to 7. That would catch our road fund budget up, because we're behind right now, so we can work on the infrastructure. The other thing that would do is it would get rid of all, they were wanting to do is get rid of all the county property tax for every resident, no matter what your age is. That 1-cent sales tax would do that. It would get rid of that tax, and it will increase our road fund and get our road fund back to where it needs to be. So when you get the road fund back to where it needs to be, you can handle a little bit more development because your roads can handle it. So that 1-cent sales tax would be a great thing, because the studies I've seen show that 30% of that sales tax is paid by non-county residents. So instead of the county footing 100% of the bill, the county's only putting 70% of the bill. The people that come to Woodstock, the people that come to the outlet mall, the people that come down from Jasper, they're going to be paying that sales tax. So that would help us catch our roads up to handle the growth, because the growth is coming whether we like it or not. We can stick our head in the sand and say, well, it's not going to be here. It's going to be here. But we have to control it and have to keep it spread out so it's not all in one place to create infrastructure problems. Thank you.
Okay, well, switching gears ever so slightly from infrastructure, Jonathan, we're going to start with you. What is your stance on short-term rentals and large-scale investor-owned properties in Cherokee County? Do you believe additional regulation is needed?
To me, I think it's a big insult to the whole county, to the United States as a whole. A lot of people don't know there are a lot of developers who team up with outside countries on work visas that pre-sell subdivisions before they're even broke ground. Okay, so you look out at all these subdivisions, you're like, wow, these are already sold out before they even broke ground. So these large developers are trying to capitalize on outside individuals who are not Cherokee citizens. They're also trying to rent out who are not Cherokee citizens or who do not obtain equity. So my opinion is everybody needs to obtain equity. That's their biggest asset in life. They contribute to the community, they pay taxes, they invest in our schools, they invest in PTAs. They care more about what's around them than what's just covering rent over their head. So my objection is to corporate housing is 100%. Nothing needs to be corporately owned. Thank you.
So I think sometimes when you have a potential problem or a problem that could come up or you think it's going to be a problem in the future, sometimes we can look to our neighboring partners and see what they're doing. I do like what Alpharetta has done. They have a proposed solution. I don't know if anybody here tonight's ever heard of it, but I think if we see this being a problem, we could do this very thing. And they've proposed a 68-32. So what they've done is they've put a cap on the rentals at 32%. So 68% owners, and they're saying that they're not going to allow anything over 32% rental. That's the goal. That's the model that Alpharetta is using. So I think it's something we should probably look at. And what it does is it keeps the housing balanced and intentional. And what it also does is it increases rental options while at the same time protecting neighborhoods. So what we have to do is this model here is it prevents a crisis before it happens. So I think what we do is we look at options like this, and I don't know the exact number, but I can tell you that the rentals are increasing daily. And here's the deal. They're increasing because it is so expensive to own a home. I think the average home sale is around $500,000. So if you make $48,000, they say, the government says you should be able to afford 30% of that, so that puts you at a $1,200 a month payment. If you make $60,000, that number is $1,500. How many homes are they that you can afford for $1,500 a month or $1,200 a month? It's becoming very hard to have the American dream. But we've got to put a cap on this, and I love what they did. We should look at it. Thank you.
Yes, corporate housing is a problem. We've got to do everything we can to discourage, which the county, like Rick had said earlier, has already made steps to limit corporate subdivisions and to limit how many rentals you can have in a subdivision. We've got to be fair to the people, but the corporate rentals are not what we want, because they do buy whole subdivisions. Before they're built, they'll buy every lot, customize the homes a little bit, and they'll be for rental. But I believe some of that is changing, but the real people can do that. We've got to work with our state senate and our House to change the tax laws on it and things like that, so you take the advantages away from corporations having multi-subdivisions like that. We can't do that as a commission, but we can sure work with the House and the Senate to also. But we can limit the rentals, and we can limit the stop of corporate bought complete subdivisions by enforcing a limit to how many rentals you can have in that subdivision. And I believe that we need to do that and stop it where it is. We can't do anything about the ones that are here, but that would stop anything that comes in. Thank you.
I think I already addressed this earlier when we were talking about affordable housing. Institutional home ownership is a major problem across this country, and it's becoming a problem. We have a higher percentage than a national average in Cherokee. National average about 4.4, Cherokee 5.1. So we have a total, like I said, about 109,250,000 homes. 14% of those are rental, and then about 5.1 of those are corporately owned. As I said earlier, the county's already made steps. We do not allow bill-for-rent subdivisions. They're not allowed in the county. When a developer comes forward with a zoning, for sale, they are limited in the future at 10% rental. So we're well below the 32% in Alpharetta, and by keeping these programs in place, we will remain lower than Alpharetta. So we want to have home ownership and have people take a part of this community, as it's been said. That's part of what you are. Once you own something, you become part of it, and we want you to be part of it. So that's all I have to say about this. I think I already talked about it before. Thank you.
So just to go back to my original question, which we'll start back with you, Jonathan, I also want to know what's your stance on short-term rentals, aka Airbnbs? What do you believe that we need additional regulation on Airbnbs, short-term rentals?
To be honest, I don't know enough about it. I don't own an Airbnb. I never used one. I'm too busy working, taking care of my kids, and if I go on vacation, I go to Disney. But most Airbnbs I know of are privately owned. They're well taken care of. They're not long-term rentals. They're all weekend warriors. So I don't know enough to answer that question, to be honest with you, so I don't have an opinion on it.
I appreciate it.
Well, I think they are needed. I don't know the current numbers on what's available or if we're in good supply of them, but I think we take a look at them and we supply what is needed. So I don't know that if it's a current issue right now, honestly. So I'm like Jonathan. I don't know the exact numbers on it, so I would have to look at that and make a decision based on that.
Well, I would think the Airbnb rentals would be under the 10% rental program. 10% would include rentals in subdivisions. That Airbnb would have to be approved to be in that same 10% group in that subdivision, so you couldn't have more than 10%. They would be under the same laws that real rentals are, would be in that 10%. That would be how you would limit it. Thank you.
The county already has ordinances in place on short-term rentals. Short-term rental is anything less than 30 days of rental. You have to have a license. You have to go to the county to get a license, and then they have to be renewed on an annual basis. There are notices sent out to those who have those that expire. They are not allowed to go forward with any more Airbnb rentals. If you rent over 30 days, you change the whole tax structure. You end up being subject to the hotel tax that the Cherokee County government has in place. And so we already have regulations. And most of the Airbnb is in District 1. It's at Lake Arrowhead. That's where most of it is in this county. So it's regulated, and it became regulated because we had a bunch of problems about 2 or 3 years ago. And in response to that, regulations and ordinances were put in place. Thank you.
Rick, I think you need to take off. It's almost 7.
I'll take one more question.
One more question. Okay, thank you. Housing diversity. Just as a straw poll, how many of you, when you moved out of your parents' house or graduated from college, lived in a home, your first home was less than 1,200 square feet? Okay. So how would you ensure a variety of housing types, such as townhomes, senior living, workforce housing, and single-family homes available in the future to meet these diverse needs? Because I haven't seen a single-family house built for sale or an apartment built for sale that's less than 1,500, 2,000 square feet. And I forget who goes first now. Justin.
Well, when I moved out of my house, I was 17 years old, and if I'm honest with you, I had nowhere to go. I remember moving in. My parents divorced at an early age, so I moved in with some folks from church when I was 17. So I couldn't really honestly answer that question that you just asked because I didn't have a place of my own. But I think it's important that and I mentioned this a while ago, accessory dwelling units. I had a lady the other day, I'll mention this again, and she said, please make me understand why the county will not let my son and my future daughter-in-law, who is just getting married, she's pregnant, and they're going to have a kid, and that's going to be her grandbaby, and they cannot afford a house that is $350,000. They certainly can't afford a house that's $500,000. So I think one thing we have to look at is we have to start cutting some of this red tape. If we know that the problem is that we do not have homes, and each zoning, when something is rezoned, there you understand and know that there is a square footage that's tied to that when you go build that and it's zoned a certain thing. So we should look at maybe possibly lowering that square footage to where it would lower the cost. I mean, you're talking over $200 per square foot to build a home right now with decent upgrades or just bare minimal stuff. So it's very expensive. So we've got to look at the process, we've got to look at the situation, and we've got to do what we can to help support our first responders, our teachers, our seniors who are on limited income, and it is in our best interest to do what we can to help them. Thank you.
Well, I wish we could do something, to be honest with you, but I'm a realist. When I moved here in 1995, I bought my property for $3,000 an acre. Property across the street sold less than a year ago, a smaller piece, not near as nice, didn't lay as good, for $32,000 an acre. So I don't know how you build inexpensive homes on expensive property. I just don't know how that's going to work. That's why we need to work with the cities, because the cities do have a higher density, which will give you inexpensive homes. I built my home, me and some friends of mine built my home in the very beginning of 1996. It's a modest ranch-style house. Since I have built my home in my area, there's probably not been a house built that's under $1 million because the property is so expensive. And you have to have multiple acres. It's all zoned agricultural. So it would be great to have $100,000 homes, but I don't know a homeowner that wants a $100,000 home next to theirs, because their average home in Cherokee County is about $400,000. That is a product of success, and it's horrible to hear, but it's just a fact of life. More people want to be here, and the more we control growth, the higher these prices are going to get. But if we don't control growth, we're going to have horrible roads and all the things that go along with it. So I would love to come up with a plan to sell a $100,000 house. I just realistically not going to stand here and tell you there's a way to do it, because the property values and everything else are so expensive. Thank you.
This is a complex problem, but frankly, the growth boundaries, we've spoken about this several times. Those are the areas where we can get the high density, we can annex freely with the cities into the county to create that higher density, which means a smaller home and a less expensive home. But we keep struggling with the supply and demand. Cherokee is a very desirable place. A lot of people want to be here. When you have a higher demand and supply, prices go up. But we have to try to balance our growth. But as it's been said here, our land values are so high right now, you can't build a smaller home on those to make it affordable. So unless you get high density. Where do you want to put the high density? You want to put it where the infrastructure is, water and sewer. That's when the growth boundaries with the cities. Another thing we've talked about, or should be talking about, is how do we get folks not wanting to have starter homes? I mean, my first starter home, linoleum floors in the kitchen. I think I paid $34,000 for it from Formica tops. We can't be putting high-end stuff in these houses and still expect them to be affordable. So we have to be more realistic on what you dress them up with. Regarding accessory units, we have ordinances already in place for that, as it's been said, but really they're limited. What controls that is the size of the lot that you have. Will it support it? Can the sewer be there? Can the septic tank support it? It's the size of the house, the accessory house has to be compatible. It cannot be larger than the main house, and it has to be architecturally similar and constructed with similar materials. So you don't have a cluster of homes with a bunch of other houses behind it that aren't familiar.
We're all pretty much saying the same thing. We got to get out of the mindset that we have to get in the mindset that less is more. We live in America, everything's bigger and better. Everybody wants the nicest house, the nicest car, the nicest yard. But we need to start off with simple baby steps. Best thing you can do is make the purchase. Over time, let these people make granite countertops. Let these persons put corium floors in. Start off simple. Now, my grandparents raised 9 kids in a 900 square foot home, 2 bedrooms. They didn't complain. That was their little mansion. Nowadays, I think people want the same mentality. They don't want these big houses, a lot of these younger kids. They just want something small, the rest of their head, have a little yard to walk their dog, nothing fancy. So I believe less is more. Start from there, and they'll build equity over time to invest in their home, to expand it, make it larger, or hopefully move to that next house that's bigger. So all that needs to start with infrastructure is from the city, work our way out. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's talk about, oh, yes, sir. I'm so sorry.
Can we give Rick a round of applause?
I want to thank you for allowing me to be here, and no disrespect to anyone here. I just need to take care of a family issue, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thank you again for your tolerance and listening to me. Thank you.
So on to collaboration with Realtors. How do you plan to collaborate with the realtor community, builders, and developers to support smart, sustainable housing policies in Cherokee County? And if you were to be elected, what are some ways that realtors can be more helpful to your priorities related to real estate throughout the county? Yes, sir.
Well, first off, I think as a commissioner, you ought to be involved from the zoning from day one. So we have less trips back and forth, so there's not so many trips. Let's try to cut the cost down. Because I've been told by developers the average cost of zoning for a subdivision or more is over $100,000. That's just passed on to the homeowners. So let's try to cut steps in zoning and be involved from the zoning process from the start, so you understand what's going on with the subdivision and what kind of subdivision is going in, or the house, or individual house, or whatever. The more involved you are with the county, the better off it'll be. Like I said, this is a full-time job because you're going to need to be out on Mondays, Tuesdays. Tuesday, of course, every other one's a commission meeting. But there's a lot of other days in the week that you're going to need to be out talking to people, seeing people, and understanding what they're trying to do to help the development process so things can get built properly with the realtors, with the developers, and get it all done so it handles without too much trouble. And the best thing you can do is be involved from the step one and talk to people and listen to people. Because no commissioner here knows everything. What you need to do as a commissioner is listen to everybody in the community and try to weigh what's best for the community. And that is the realtors, that is the developers, and they weigh in too. So just being involved and listening, I think, will help the process because you will understand where the other person's coming from. Thank you.
As mentioned, I do work in commercial construction, industrial, so I'm on the front end of any development that breaks ground before the newspaper knows about it, before developers know, before zoning knows about it. I'm pre-pricing it, so I know all the upfront cost and restriction for any development that comes in there. So I know what everything needs as the buyer, the consumer, and the neighbor around it. My primary goal is protect the existing neighbors there first. You can't stop growth, but I want to protect the existing neighbors. As mentioned, good fences make good neighbors. So I want to, if there's a 50-foot easement on the back side, it needs to be a 50-foot on the front side, whatever type of development it is. From there, you work within that property if it fits within the community and the land use plan. If that property does not fit the dynamics on both sides, the buyer and the seller and the adjacent community, see if there's other properties within the area that the developer would want to invest in. Also, look at the upfront cost for infrastructure. Talk to the schools. The schools know the capacity of the students. The schools know the transportation. They know the tax revenue, know everything that comes into the school system. So it all works together as a circle, and I look at this as a business. I want to look up for the upfront cost before you invest into any community, before we build. I want a return on our investment for the community. Thank you.
So here's what I know and understand, just out of curiosity. How many realtors do we have in the house tonight? Would you raise your hand? Just curious. So we have a good amount. Here's the reality in this. If you don't have homes, if homes aren't being built and you don't have homes builders building new homes, and you don't have people listing their homes for sale, then y'all don't have jobs. So here's what I am for. I'm for cutting red tape for the right builders. I want to streamline the permitting process for builders, but I love builders that are not in it for the profit. We need to make sure that, yes, you got to make a profit, but I want to work with local builders here that work with realtors and understand that we have to create a true partnership with realtors. Here's the deal. In my past life, when I owned Page Relocation, I sold, and so Mike is on the front row. He'll tell you, I called on him for years. Hey, Mike, you got any customers you want to move with us? So realtors are on the front lines, and the fact of the matter is y'all know exactly what the buyers are saying, and you know where the deals are falling through, and you know where the county's policies are hurting the process. So I think that the county should start looking into and build a better relationship with the realtors in Cherokee County and the board of Cherokee County Board of Realtors. And I would think we should create quarterly roundtables with the realtors, with builders, and other key stakeholders, so we're not making policy in a vacuum. We've got to find a solution to this problem, and we need to hear from y'all regularly, and we need to make sure that we don't hear from y'all and you hear from us just at election time. So it's an important problem. We need to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, these are some complicated, in-depth questions, and I appreciate none of them have seen any of these questions, and obviously I'm making some of them up as we go along. So one of the things, home ownership increases stability, decreases transiency in school, which increases school test scores. We have people more involved in the community, which is good. And so one of the things that when I was president of the Cherokee Association is we have other ideas on ways to increase home ownership. Mike, I keep calling him Pike. we would say half of the problem is the interest rates. One of the reasons why Habitat for Humanity works is they have a 0% interest rate. Would you be open to other ideas that would chip away at this problem of housing attainability and open to discussing with the Cherokee Association of Realtors as to how that might look or some ideas that could work? We'll start with Jonathan.
During my introduction, I mentioned the idea of working with our state legislative or senators about offering or teaming up with builders and banks when they issue a new home loan. These builders are investing in our community. They're bringing new revenue for the community, but also the banks are the ones who make all the money in the front end. The owner does not make anything on the tail end. So we want these banks not to give out bogus loans, but we want them to be invested in the community as well. So some of that interest that they have obtained over the years, put that as an upfront cost to help offset impact fees. The average cost to to teach a child in Cherokee County is a little over $8,500 a year. That doesn't cover, the current impact fee is over $1,000. So that doesn't cover the upfront cost. You're already basically 7 years behind. That is also implement the roads, the first responders, the police officers, in addition to that. So we're always playing catch up. Another option would be is work on incentives for first responders and teachers. They're essentially paying for their own salary. So if we can afford or work with the homestead exemption, very similar to that, give some kind of credit or stipend towards the property tax, whether it be a single family or a two-income family or both first responders. Help offset that, because we want to keep our teachers as well as our first responders to live in the county that they represent. Thank you.
So we definitely got to come up with some solutions and better problems. And the fact is, I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you this, that we were all surprised at our property taxes when we received those. And frankly, I'm thankful and glad. I was at the BOC meeting this week, and the BOC commissioners and they did not raise the millage rate. They held the line on that. So Jonathan and I were there, and we heard them do that, so that was very good. But you would think if your property taxes are going up, you would think that the millage rate should be doing a little bit more than just holding the line. I'm thankful that it held the line, but they should be decreasing. You would think that. So even with exemptions, people are still paying more each year. And as you know, the school board, they opted out of the new statewide homestead freeze. So most of these increases that you're seeing, and they've explained this pretty well, are coming from the school portion of the tax bill. So my solution for this is, and we really got to do what we can to look at this, but we should be not just trying to hold the millage rate line, we should try to lower that. One thing that I think we can do to help with the budget and all this issue, so really the problem, the answer to all this, friends, is we have to really implement and what I've called since day one a zero-based budgeting. And we have a $415 million. There should be no automatic increases. Every department must justify every dollar every single year. Start back at zero. And what you got to do is you got to tie the growth to the population. You've got to launch independent audits. You've got to work closer with the school board. You've got to strengthen homestead protections. You've got to increase accountability. These are things that we can do to solve this problem. Thank you.
Well, I believe the question was, would you listen to the realtors? Well, what I've done in business for all my life, I've been in the entertainment, restaurant, and bar business, from sports bars to restaurants. I'm not the best idea guy in the world, I'll admit that. But I've been very successful at what I've done because I listen to my customers. And you try to do what you can to help them the most. Yes, you hear some stuff that's absolutely of no use, but you do hear good things. And if you're not willing to listen to the realtors, listen to the developers, listen to the builders, listen to the property owners. You've got to listen to everybody to learn what everybody needs, because I live in a rural part of Cherokee County. I don't live in a golf course community. I don't know the whole needs of a golf course community. I mean, I play golf. I've been in them a lot, but do I know the needs as a homeowner? No. Do I know the needs exactly to build it? No, but the developers and the realtors do. So I will continue to do what I've done in private business, is listen. And that's the most important thing a commissioner can do, is listen to you, because you're the experts in that field. And no, I may disagree. And that's the one thing you will learn about me, is I'm a simple guy. You know where I stand. But my mind can be changed if you give me good information. I've never been one that's got a way and it's got to be this way. And that's why you need to work with everybody. And I promise if I get elected, I will work with the realtors, the developers, the homeowners, and everybody, because that's the only way we can do this. Thank you.
Now, we did receive some questions from the audience, and so I'm going to go ahead and ask them. Let's see. Good thing I brought my glasses. Would you prefer the county to resemble Milton, Holly Springs, and why? It just says Milton, like 2 bullet points, Holly Springs, so either one, I'm guessing. Go for it.
I grew up right off of Birmingham Road and Birmingham Highway. My parents had a small farm growing up, and you probably see it now as the Fulton County Fire Department. So, but yeah, I'm upset that the land's gone. There's no longer the memories I had as a kid, but Milton is definitely investing in green space, buying a lot of green space, especially at every major intersection, such as Freemanville Road and Birmingham Road. Anytime there's a large tract for sale, they try to purchase it. Now, a lot of people make a lot more revenue in Milton. I mean, the house with property taxes, but they don't have near the commercial or industrial that we do. So all we have to do is pivot more onto our commercial industrial revenue side, where we could obtain that equity to purchase more land like Milton and everything else in the area. Milton's a great area to grow. They have great schools, School of Excellence. I thought it was a great place to live. That's why I moved to Freehome. It reminded me of that area growing up as a kid, the memories I had. And I want to continue to have that memory for my kids growing up. So I'm going to do everything I can to protect my community, which is Freehome, as well as District 1, because I think it reminds me of the Milton as it was in the 80s. Thank you.
So I think the question was a choice of Holly Springs or Milton, right? So 100%, if I have those two choices, I am not choosing Holly Springs, because when you go down Holly Springs, how many people know that we see a self-storage unit on every corner? We see apartment on every corner. And here's the deal, Holly Springs, and we've heard about this all night, these cities are continuing to annex in. So in situations where Cherokee County stands up and says no, we got to understand what's happening here. If a builder or developer walks into Cherokee County and they say, well, I would like to put 10 homes here, or I would like to put 20 homes here. Here's what's happening. Cherokee County said, nope, you can't do that. Well, guess what? We need to realize that what they're doing. They're going to turn right around and they're going to Holly Springs, or they will go to Canton, and Canton or Holly Springs will give them what they want. So if we know that that's going to happen anyways, wouldn't we try to maybe start working with them a little bit better? But to answer your question, is there's little to nothing that we can do about annexing in, and it's nothing more than a power struggle. That's all it is. And I spoke with a gentleman a few weeks ago who heard these cases when they come to them, and he said, guess how many times when Cherokee County has sued one of the counties, guess how many times they have won? 0. Maybe one time, he mentioned, in the past 10 or 15 years. But to answer your question, if I had a choice, I'm choosing Milton all day long, because, as you mentioned, through Freehome, and you reach there, Milton, I drive through Milton, I feel like I'm in horse country. And I live on 8 acres on Avery Road, and I'm thankful. I have a place that my son can grow up like I did, in the woods and the creek and the dog that my wife wants me to get. So definitely Milton over Holly Springs. Thank you.
Well, I think everybody agrees. We'd much rather be like Milton. But I'm not going to bash Holly Springs. I'm not going to bash Woodstock. We need the cities. We need a little better cooperation with them, because that's where you're going to have the higher density. You're going to have the nightlife if you want to go out and eat. You're not going to ride out to Salacoa to go have dinner. You're going to go to the cities. We need the cities. We just need to work with the cities a little better on their growth, because that's where your affordable housing and your high density is. But we do, Cherokee County District 1 is, like I said, it goes from golf course communities to cow pastures. We're mainly on septic tanks. So we would have a whole lot easier time becoming a Milton type, but with a Cherokee County spin on it. We're not going to do exactly what Milton does. But yes, Milton isn't a bad frame to follow the basics on. There's some things in Milton that I don't like, which there's things in every community you don't like. But yes, District 1 has no possibility of growing like Holly Springs, because we don't have sewer, we don't have the roads, we don't have a lot of things. But it can grow more like Milton. Thank you.
So this question's from the audience. Do you have a business LLC in Cherokee? And have you ever done business with or for a Cherokee developer? I don't know the purpose of it, but it's important to somebody.
I personally do not. The only LLC I have is my Elect JB LLC in Cherokee County, and I've not done any work personally or professionally in Cherokee County. Thank you.
You said the question is, do you have any LLCs?
You have an LLC in Cherokee County. Have you done business with a developer?
Do any of you have a business LLC in Cherokee, and or have you ever done business for Cherokee or developers in Cherokee?
Yes, I have a business LLC in Cherokee County, but no, I have never done and worked and collaborated with a developer.
Well, I have 2 LLCs, one in Cobb County and one in Cherokee County. One's a sports bar and restaurant in Cobb County, and the other one's a deer processor. So I don't see any way that I could work with a county. But I do believe this question was probably for Rick, but thank you.
And did you go? Okay, sorry. Okay. Do you support President Trump's desire to either replace the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell or have him reduce the interest rate? This will help first-time home buyers and resale.
Lowering the interest rate is a double-edged sword. If you lower the interest rate, yes, it will flood the market with more houses, but people are just going to jack up the houses as well. It's a tit for tat, you know? The main thing is people are already upside down or owe so much on a home, they're not going to take a loss unless it's the 40s, death, disease, financial distress or divorce. We don't want to see any of that happen. So lowering the interest rates are only going to really help for new home builders. But yet again, it's a supply and demand. Atlanta has a great market, where currently right now there's more houses for sale than buyers. So that may offset a little bit, but the average homes that are for sale are over 500. The one below 500 are selling very quickly. So it's a mixed emotions on that. It doesn't really help. One thing we need to do is control our cost up front, at the impact fees, the red tape, to lower the cost for houses being affordable. Because the houses already on the market that are being built, already obtained, I don't see them going down anymore. Thank you.
I think President Trump knows a lot better than I know on this subject. But yeah, of course. I mean, why wouldn't I support a lowering of an interest rate? And here's the deal. Is there anybody in this room that sells homes that wouldn't support that? Because here's the fact of the matter. If the interest rate goes down, I believe you'll see a lot of more buyers and wanting to actually buy a house, because in order to have attainable, and I love that y'all use that word, by the way. I've been looking for a different word other than using affordable, but listen, if the interest rates goes down, then things start happening. And let me tell you what happens, friends. What happens is your inventory, people's going to say, oh, well, I want the interest rates lowered. My payment can get a little bit better. They're going to start doing the math, and perhaps their family is growing and they need to build a bigger home, or maybe they're downsizing. So, of course, I mean, no one wants to see the interest rate increase. So I would definitely be for decreasing the interest rate. Thank you.
Well, the question on whether the president should have control of the Federal Reserve is, I'm not so quite sure about that. There needs to be some separations in power. We all know why the house prices are what they are. It's because we had super low interest rates forever, so people buy houses on payments. Like they buy a car, they buy everything else on a payment, not the price, what the payment is. So when your interest rates were really low and the federal government gave out so much money, the house prices came up because the banks weren't getting it. So that's a need for the houses, and it rose the price up. If we drop the interest rate, yes, housing will take off again, but that is a double-edged sword. But I do not really believe that the president ought to have the complete power over the Federal Reserve, because it is a complete separate entity, and the Federal Reserve has a lot of problems. I don't argue that. And the more you look into it, the more sketchy it is. But giving the president power might not be the best thing, because you got to remember, once you do this, it's there. So when we get a Democrat in power, they'll be able to do the same thing. So you have to be careful of what you ask for sometimes. But the interest rate right now is at a historical kind of average, which is very high for what most people here are used to, because they grew up in the 3% range, in that. So you do have to play with the interest rate to control the inflation and all that, and it is a multi-factor deal that has more than just house prices involved. So, and to be honest with you, that's a little above my pay grade. Thank you.
So I think one thing we could do to establish good rapport, if any of you are elected, is, Robert, you could open a bar just for realtors to come in and drink and commiserate about all the things we've been talking about tonight. So this question, again, it came from the audience. Explain in your own words how the county assesses home values. And we'll start with Justin.
Well, I was just telling Robert, you mentioned a bar. He said he already had a bar. So
Yeah.
Read the question again. I'm sorry.
In your own words, how does the county assess home values?
Well, we just mentioned this the other night. There was a lady that showed up to the BOC meeting, and she was I thought she had a great comment and great idea. She said, I'm really confused at the process that they use to value our property. And so she wanted some explanation on that, and I thought Harry gave her a pretty good explanation. But what they do is they come, and here's the deal: it's whoever you get, right? There's no. I think that the process needs to be more uniformed, and I forget that the agency that it's called is on the top of my head, but it needs to be better, shall I say, governed, and because the values they don't seem to have a rhyme or reason, right? I mean, this particular example that the lady gave, she mentioned a square footage, and then she said, well, hey, mine's went up this much, but my neighbor has this many square feet. And so she was really confused when we went to the meeting the other night as to how her property was assessed. And so Harry tried to explain to her that each property is assessed by someone different, and they have guidelines and procedures, and they have to be within a percentage. And if they're not within a percentage, when you look at this and when the home goes to sale, if that home goes to sale, if it is not within a certain percentage of what it was assessed versus what it sells, then there's a penalty to Cherokee County. And I'm happy to tell you, I believe that percentage is 5%, that we have to stay within 5%. And according to what was said the other night at the BOC meeting, that we've been within that 5%. So, thank you.
Well, the appraisal, from what I understand, is in the tax commissioner's office. It's more controlled by the state than most of us would have any idea. Actually, Cherokee County was getting in trouble with the state because they were not increasing the home values as much as the state said they should, because it's got a very complicated deal to do with the interstate, railroad tracks, and all kind of things. And and Cherokee County got in trouble and was going to get fined if they didn't start catching up to home values, because it has to be in a certain percentage of the sale value. So Cherokee County's hands are pretty tied in that deal. That's another thing for the state legislature, for your House and your Senate. It would be great if we had that control, but we don't. But it happens everywhere. I bought 2 acres in Pickens County a year ago. I paid $11,000 for the 2 acres a year ago. I just got a tax appraiser saying the county says it's worth $32,000 this year. I wish it was. But, you're not going to fight it, but they have to go by the state too. And so it would be great if the county could just do it by themselves, but about 80 or 85% of the appraisal things are controlled by the state. And if you don't do it correctly, you will get in trouble and you'll get fined. So that's why the county's having to do what they do. Thank you.
The key word is assessed value. It's like throwing a dart at a dartboard, hoping to get the most value out of your money for that house. So the power and the railroad help dictate your land values, address with that as well. And it is addressed through the tax commission, which is controlled by the state, and you have to be plus or minus 5%. But you have to ask yourself, my house has gone up 217% in 8 years. That's like 23% a year. But you're not supposed to exceed 5% a year cap. So unless people argue these, complain these, nobody's going to fight against it. So the commissioner has to fight for the community as well as the tax assessors for these values, that the average person is not getting a 27% pay increase a year. It's great if they want to sell the house, but these long-term people who are in the house from 30, 40 years ago are set on a set budget, they can't afford this assessed value. So everything needs to be addressed accordingly, and it needs to come from the uppers, from the state and the House, to address these assessed values, because the commissioner only has his hands tied on so much. That's where it needs to start from. Thank you.
So we had one last question, then after this we'll go into closing statements. So we have money and time from our community volunteers to analyze and create a future land use plan. Why spend time or money if we won't adhere and approve development accordingly? Make it zoning in a box. That's what I interpret. So we have money and time from our community volunteers to analyze and create a future land use plan. Why spend time or money if we will not adhere and approve development accordingly?
Well, like you said, the land use plan is an agreement between the cities and the county. There's nothing legally binding anybody to it. And they go by it pretty good. My plan is where the county adjoins the city, we need to be a little more lenient in what we do in zoning there and give a little bit. Because what happens is we get real strict. Well, then that landowner gets zoned into the county, and next thing you know, you got apartments on that land, where we may have zoned it R30 and made a compromise with the landowner. What's going to be important about that is once you build a wall around the cities with some medium density, the city's not going to expand anymore, because I don't know anybody that's probably going to volunteer to go pay double taxes to move into the city when they already live there. So what we can do as a county is try to give a little bit around the cities, and that way we can slow down the city growth. If not, look at Fulton County. I think it has, what, Charlie Brown Airport left? It doesn't have any county, it's all city. And if we're not careful, in 30 years, which I know 30 years is a long time away, Cherokee County will be the same way, and it'll be controlled completely by the cities and not by the county. Thank you.
Occasionally you see these meetings at the fire departments for community land use plans, and they invite the community for their input, and everybody's open to come to it, and I've been to quite a few, and majority of them all give their input, yay or nay for this, but from what I've seen is most of these land use plans represent the owner at the major intersection, or these large owners. So if you're not going to consider the community input, why pay someone $230,000 to create something? Because their input is not even being utilized. So we're asking ourselves, who is it really benefiting? Is it benefiting the landowner for proper tax use, or is it inputting the community who approves it or disapproves it? So my thoughts are why pay someone if your community gives 100% their input? You know, I guess I'm going in circles here. The land use, I think it's input favoring the landowners, not the community, for each land use plan. That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
So I love this question. Here's the reality in this, and I've said this so many times. Somebody said the other day, said, if you can make and all y'all know that I'm a minister, pastor. I've pastored a church here in District 1, and somebody joked with me the other day and said, well, if you can pastor a congregation full of Baptists, you can bring anybody together. And here's the reality is we've got to bring these people together. We got to bring the cities together with the county. Yes, they've said they've had meetings, but the reality is that I know that some of the city leaders, they don't even want to talk to some of the BOC members. So the first thing that Justin Page is going to do, if I get elected, I'm going to personally reach out to all these cities, and I'm going to reach out to Canton. I'm going to reach out to Holly Springs. I'm going to reach out to all these places, and I'm going to see if we can't sit down at the table and talk and come to some sort of better agreement. And listen, we have these, I was told that we do this every 5 years, right? So every 5 years, I think we need to look at it a little bit quicker than 5 years. Because here's the deal. How many of you know, we just did the math, we're growing by 2%. That is the math on this. Actually, this year is 1.85. I rounded to 2. But if we know that each year we're growing 2%, 2%, 2%, where's my son and wife just left? We have to go get him in bed tonight. He goes to Avery Elementary. Where's he going to be where's Cherokee County going to be when he graduates high school? So here, the reality is we got to get to the table. We've got to start making leaders listen with each other and come to some sort of agreement. Prime example, Cherokee County, with the recent annexation of the property over in Hickory Flat behind Publix. The community had an outcry. Cherokee County says, listen, we believe you violated this. We're going to sue. But are they going to win? We got to start getting to the table and come up with real solutions.
All right. Well, at this time, we're going to move into closing statements. And Mr. Ridley, we're going to start with you. And we're going to do 1 minute and just talk about your final thoughts on everything. We're going to go into final remarks, closing. Yes, you, sir.
Well, like I said, I've been in private business all my life. I've spent all my own money every time I write a check. I'm not a politician, and I can't give you two answers. People that know me will tell you that I'm the most straightforward person you'll ever meet. I'm not rude, I'm not ugly. You just will know where I stand. But I will listen, and I have been known to change my mind. And that's the way you need to govern this county, is you need to listen to the community. Everybody in the community, and try to figure out the best compromise, because you're not going to make everybody happy. That's just not going to happen. But if you can figure out the best compromise that is correct for the county, fits what the county wants to do, what everybody in the county wants to do, that is your job. So my biggest job for the county is being available and listening, because those are the two most important things I can do, because then I can learn what each part of the county needs, because every part of this county has a different need. We just need to be socially and physically responsible. Thank you.
So most everybody in here knows my story. I'll just tell you some high-level things, and then I'll tell you what I want to talk about. I am self-funding my own campaign because not because I can or can't, but I don't want to owe anybody any favors. Had a guy the other day call me up a few weeks ago and said, hey, I'd like to donate $5,000 to you. And I said, brother, I'm sorry, I'm not accepting that. I announced at the beginning that I wouldn't take any donations. And it wasn't because I don't want the donations. I just don't want to feel like I owe anybody any favors. But then I turned around and said, I'll tell you what you can do. I have a sign in my car, and I'd love to put a sign up at your house. And he said, well, no, I'm good. And I got in the car, and I thought to myself, you want to give me $5,000, but you don't want to take a $35 sign. So something's up there. So I will say this about me. I have the time to do this. I sold my business back in February. I have the time, I have the heart, I have the passion to do this. But I want to spend my minute telling you how that we should do this. And we've got to start with the budget. I don't know if I have any time left. No time left. How much time do I have left? Is this 1 minute? Okay. We need to do a forensic audit. And a forensic audit, if it just uncovers 1% of our $415 million budget, that will free up $4 million. If it does 5%, that's going to free up $20 million. We got to start with finding an answer on how we're going to pay for all these problems. Thank you.
I'm a simple person. I'm not well-spoken. I'm very black and white. It's truth or false. That's how I see things. And I think of this county as a business. Everybody wants a return on their investment. I see the taxpayers as the owner, and I want to represent them, just as I do my house. I live within a budget. I want to focus that budget, and I try to capitalize what I have. I have that same mentality for everybody here. Additionally, I'm self-funding myself. I'm invested in the community. I'm not going anywhere. So if I don't win, I'm still here long-term to fight for our community. I want to protect for the existing residents here first. That's my priority, the existing residents that made Cherokee County great. Then focus on repairing what we have to welcome the new residents. Third thing is I want to save rural Cherokee County. I want to put all of our growth close to the interstate and work our way out instead of working our way out in. I promise that. I'll probably stand by my word. I'm very simple, and a man is his bond, and I'll stand by that. Thank you.
Thank you again to our candidates for your time, and thank you all. If you're in District 1 or just a concerned Cherokee County member, thank you for taking the time for your evening to be here with us. We really appreciate you. And, don't forget, the latest day that you can officially vote is August 26th, but early voting is now, so please find your places if you want to early vote if you've made a decision. And thank you for your time. Y'all drive safe tonight.